Well, after no running at all on Friday due to the weather in the Eifel Mountains at the Nurburgring in October, no surprise, it rained all day and the helicopter was grounded. The helicopter, that is, that would take somebody injured, probably a driver, from the track to the nearest hospital. The FIA should make a point here. The FIA came up with a very good plan B for the weekend should that terrible weather continue, and that was to clear an area for a helicopter landing site relatively near a hospital. So that was in place, and good job by the FIA for coming up with that. Anyway, we move forward to Saturday with a condensed program. FP3 followed shortly afterwards by qualifying. And was it going to change anything? Was it going to put Formula One in a tizzy? Well, of course it didn't. Everything pretty much the same. Two Mercedes on the front row. This time Valtteri Bottas just ahead of Lewis Hamilton, continuing the momentum that built up, obviously, as a result of that win in Russia. And P3, Max Verstappen for Red Bull. So you could say 2-day weekends, Formula One can handle it. Obviously, they would be cheaper. And beyond that, there was no installation lap delay in FP3. Normally they go out, do one lap straight into the pits, 20 minutes sitting around, downloading all the data. Well, there's no time for that in FP3 on this occasion. Did it make a lot of difference? Well, I suppose you could say that the graining problem that Max Verstappen spoke about after qualifying, a lot of load on the front of the Red Bull, the tyres are going off and then they're beginning to grain, which is a problem. It's a chronic problem, particularly on the Pirelli red tyre, so we can look for that in the race tomorrow. If there'd been more time, probably Red Bull would have gone on top of that. Equally, Mercedes and all the other teams would have got more on top of the tyre temperature issue, because it is cold in the Eifel Mountains. This is the medium range of Pirelli compound, the same compound that Pirelli took to Spa and to Silverstone, and that's about right. If you had to make a prediction of where you'd be at the Nürburgring, you'd probably go for that. They couldn't even do a proper tarmac test for data because of the COVID restrictions. So good job by Pirelli overall, but I guess in retrospect they might say they would have gone a grade softer had they known what the weather was going to be like this weekend in Germany. Anyway, Valtteri Bottas took the pole. He was really quick in FP3 when he went out for a quick lap. When I say he went out for a quick lap, Mercedes left it very late. They did a lot of homework in the first 35-40 minutes of FP3. At this point, Max Verstappen was easily quickest. He'd done a lot of good runs on the medium and on the red tyre, and had already started to talk about this problem at the front. But when it came to putting on the red tyre for the Mercedes and getting out there and doing a time with no fuel in the car, Valtteri Bottas was really quick, and he ended up fastest of all in FP3. And he continued that through into the beginning of qualifying. But Q2, the middle session, which in some ways can define the race, because if you can qualify on a better race tyre, you can then take that through to the race on Sunday. Q2 was a defining moment because in the first runs, both Mercedes were out on the medium tyre, underlining that there is going to be a graining problem on this Pirelli soft. And if you're going to find any advantage at all, Lewis against Bottas, Mercedes against Red Bull, whatever it is, it's going to be in selecting a tyre in Q2. So they're both out on the medium tyre, and Lewis did a good job on that. He was P2 at the end of the first runs. Max Verstappen had been quickest. He did a 25.7 on the red tyre, on the red softer Pirelli, but Lewis on the medium 26.1, which put him in pretty good shape. He could then take that medium tyre into the race. Valtteri, by contrast, was way down in P8, so he had to go out for his second run on the red tyre. He had to make sure he could get through into the top 10 for Q3. So at this point, there was a gamble there for Lewis Hamilton to take. Was he quick enough to remain in the top 10 on that medium tyre, or did he need to go out on the red soft tyre and go even quicker? Enter the race engineer of Esteban Ocon, who said to Esteban, to get through into Q3, looks like you're going to have to do a 26.4 or better, Esteban. Lewis, as a reminder, had done a 26.1. So at this point, I thought, most people probably thought, well, Lewis is probably okay and he's going to be in good shape because he's going to start the race on the medium, whereas Valtteri's got to go out on the soft tyre. But nonetheless, Lewis went out on a set of new softs for that second run, presumably just to be able to react if it did look as if his time was in danger. But as it happened, he went a lot quicker on the red tyre. He had 25.3, Max was P2, and Valtteri did a good job to do a 25.9 to get comfortably through into Q3. So looking at it at the end of Q2, and this is where it's very easy to be a couch potato and say, look, I told you so. If Lewis hadn't done that time on the red tyre, he would have done his 26.1, would have enabled him to go through to Q3, and he would be starting tomorrow on the medium tyre rather than the red. He didn't need to do that time on the red tyre. So he will not be happy about that, but it's easy to be in retrospect wise, of course, so which we all enjoy doing, but that was the point. Renault had a good feel for where they were going with the time, 26.4, and you would assume that Mercedes would have had the same data accumulation. They would have had a feel for 26.4 as well. So why Lewis did that 25.3 is bit curious, really. Anyway, Q3, they're all out on red and they're all going to be starting on red. And now Valtteri could feel, right, it's an even playing field. I'm just going to put the lap together now. And he was really, really good. He was as good as he was in FP3, looked very fluid in the car, and was quicker in every sector than Lewis on this particular occasion. Max Verstappen P3, probably with a higher front tyre rate than Mercedes as we go in tomorrow, but nonetheless, again, getting absolutely the maximum from the car. But look at P4 for the Eifel Grand Prix, called the Eifel Grand Prix, I guess because the title German Grand Prix is irretrievably linked to Hockenheim. Maybe wrong there. I haven't actually done my research yet, but I'm assuming that's the case. P4, Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. Now, this doesn't mean that Ferrari are right back on the pace and Ferrari are really quick. This means this is another weekend where one of these great Grand Prix drivers, Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, I guess Valtteri Bottas this weekend for sure, and Charles Leclerc playing the variables perfectly, just getting out there, doing laps around a circuit where everybody's having problems with tyre temperatures, locking up here, issues with the back end there, and Charles just beautiful to watch again. So P4, and got to say it, Sebastian Vettel didn't even make it through to Q3. So all credit at this point, and I haven't said enough about him this year, to Jock Clear, who we don't see on the pit wall at Ferrari at the moment, but he's in the garage and he's the performance engineer for Charles Leclerc, and a lot of Charles' performance improvements this year, I think, should be credited to Jock Clear. Excellent job. And just every time he gets in the car now, you take it for granted that he's going to be quicker than Sebastian Vettel. And you can't say, oh, that's because Sebastian's leaving the team and Ferrari aren't giving him this or Ferrari. Of course they're giving him everything the same. Mechanically, the car is exactly the same. Sebastian's mind may not be 100% Ferrari now, any more than Sergio Perez is for Racing Point. Speaking of which, Lance Stroll didn't feel good this morning at the Nurburgring, didn't get in the car, and lo and behold, Germany being Germany, Nico Hülkenberg straight back in the car. On this occasion, the Lance Stroll car rather than Sergio Perez car, and of course he'll do a very good job tomorrow. It was too much to think that Nico would get in the car and be instantly quick. But you've got to remember that Racing Point here aren't actually in great shape anyway. They're not getting the tyre temperatures. This whole issue of a condensed weekend was going to affect the midfield more than it would affect the teams at the front, who have a better database for everything, have these building blocks upon which they can call. But the midfield teams have less data on which to call when they are put under pressure like this. And Racing Point didn't seem to be getting the tyre temperatures that they needed to get the car really right. So it was a difficult day for them anyway. Sergio Perez wasn't that quick. And for Nico Hülkenberg to jump in the car was always going to be a difficult ask. But nonetheless, he's there. He's going to be starting from the back, but look for a good race tomorrow from Nico because he's that sort of racing driver, isn't he? Sergio Perez, by comparison, got through to Q3 with a 26.7. He'll be starting P9. But in Q1, which was the comparable session, Sergio Perez 27.1, Nico Hülkenberg 28.0. So 0.9 off the pace, just jumping in the car. Not bad at all. So let's talk about some of the others. Alex Albon, 26.0, half a second slower than Max Verstappen. That's not too bad. Daniel Ricciardo, 26.2, just slower than the second Red Bull. That's about where Renault would be. And a time match by Esteban Ocon. So Renault, you could say, just about at the limit of their car, although I don't think either driver got in the perfect lap. Then came Lando Norris, done a very good job all weekend, 0.3 quicker than Carlos Sainz, his teammate. In terms of corners at the Nürburgring, the best section of road in my mind is one that doesn't feature particularly strongly on the TV coverage and the angles they've got this weekend, sadly, frustratingly. But that is the 5-6, turns 5-6 section, which is the downhill left-hander, cambered, quite quick left-hander, followed by a tighter right, turn 6. And this corner always reminds me of watching Michael Schumacher there endlessly in his peak Ferrari days, going into turn 5. He was absolutely brilliant. To me, that corner encapsulates left foot braking and Michael Schumacher and getting it absolutely right. And the left foot braking wasn't just in slowing the car down, it was also in the way he was using it just to pitch the car slightly. I'll never forget watching Michael there, absolutely superb. Speaking of Michael, great shame of course yesterday that Mick Schumacher couldn't get out in the Alpha to do his first FP1 run. But on the other side of the coin, Mick, this isn't all bad. glad, because you went through the whole routine of getting involved with the team, of being there, of almost getting out onto the circuit. And for sure, you'll get another opportunity in an FP1 before the end of the year. So from Mick's point of view, yeah, not brilliant. You'd love to have been out there in front of his home crowd. Equally, it's not the end of the world. I noticed that up the hill, they call it the Michael Schumacher S, and it's flat, that first S, after turn 7. And then they go into the tighter left-right, the famous Coulthard section of road where he went off once. But to me, if you're going to name anything after Michael, it should be 5, 6, because those are classic Michael Schumacher corners. Speaking of naming corners, I always think of the last part of the lap as the Fernando Alonso section of the lap, because that's, of course, going into the last corner is where he famously spun the Renault on the formation lap when he was doing a tyre warming thing at one point. And I thought that was quite amusing. Fernando probably doesn't think it's very funny. But yeah, whenever I see that last corner at Nurburgring, I always think of Fernando doing that. So yeah, going to be a really good race, I think. It's going to be good between Lewis and Bottas. At the moment, it's difficult to see how Lewis is going to beat Valtteri. He looks to be completely on top of things. He's the driver that wish he'd been since after Austria, really. And Lewis probably a little bit annoyed that he's not starting on the medium tyre and giving himself that sort of advantage. And an advantage really that he had earned with that very, very good lap at the beginning of Q2. But anyway, that's all history now, and they'll be starting on the same tyre with Max Verstappen there. And Max, no doubt, will be hoping that there'll be a bit of rain as well, just to add to the entertainment. We'll see you tomorrow. See you then.